Hello and welcome to round 2 of the Parenting Roundabout podcast. I'm Catherine Haleko and I'm here with Terri Morrow. Say hi, Terri.
Hello.
Usually on this podcast, we talk about parenting issues, but once a week, Terri and I like to get together to discuss TV, movies, books, and other entertainment topics, mostly TV. But we do that because it's nice to talk about something other than parenting for a change.
Yes, indeed.
So this week we'll be continuing our Great American Baking Show watch with Bread Week and our West Wing watch with the Leadership Breakfast. But first, Terri, did you watch Hairspray live?
I did watch Hairspray live. I watched it actually live, unlike you, I believe. And
right.
Live things are not the same as like actually being in a room with performers live, and they are not like seeing a movie where everything is produced and pumped up. They're just kind of people singing and dancing on a soundstage.
Yeah.
And it didn't bother me so much when it was The Sound of Music, because that was the first one they ever did and they were figuring out how to do it. And Sound of Music isn't a big boisterous thing. You know, it's not
right. With its small.
It's kind of soundstagey just in and of itself.
Right.
And some of the ones they've done have been a little better. Some of the ones they've done have been a lot worse. This was, I would call this perfectly fine, which is probably not what they were going for.
Right.
It just seemed not that exciting. You know, I just kept wanting it to leap out of my TV, and I had to keep telling myself, well, you know, they're just doing this live and there's all these technical things, and isn't that nice? And that, you know, they had like little bits of audience cheering in the background, but it does, I had so strongly in my head the movie version of the musical, not the first Hairspray movie, but the musical version. And that was just popping off the screen and so full of energy and so full of couples who you thought that if you looked away for a second, they might be doing it. You know, it just... You know, everybody was passionate about it. And this was just sort of like a really, really, really good high school production, which is kind of what I felt about that Sound of Music way back when, too. What did you think about it? Am I just a Grinch on this stuff? Because I was following it on Twitter, and quite a few people seem to be enjoying the heck out of it. So
no, I felt this. I felt the same way you did. That it was not grabbing me in terms of just being really, really exciting. I liked some of the cameos, like Sean Hayes.
Yes.
And even Rosie O'Donnell.
Rosie O'Donnell, no. I didn't like that character, and I didn't like her performance with it, and it was...
Right. It was extremely subdued for being Rosie O'Donnell, which is also what I thought about Martin Short.
Yes.
That he was way less goofy than he usually is.
Yeah.
And I liked some of the other performances, like, I actually liked Derek. I thought he did a good job.
Derek was the person, I think, who came out of it the best. He did exactly what he was called on for to do. He played to the cameras well. He did it with a certain amount of charisma. I thought he did terrific. In a role that's doesn't really call for that much other than singing and dancing. So good on you, man.
Right, which is why it was a good fit for him. And also Jennifer Hudson. I mean, she's too young, I think, for that role.
She's too small for that role.
Yeah, I know. They kept talking about how she's so big.
She's famously lost weight. She was a Weight Watchers spokesperson for a long time. She is no longer big. She's beautiful, but she's not big. And it was just so bizarre watching that. Is this what TV people think big looks like? I mean, Queen Latifah played it in the movie, and she's a beautiful woman, but she could sing big and she can shake it. Jennifer Hudson just looked too petite. I'm like, what are you talking about? And Ariana Grande also, you know, terrific belting singer. And
right. I loved her voice, but
I went back to the movie to confirm my memory that Amanda Bynes just played the hell out of that character. And she looked like she was just pretty much going to devour seaweed whole, you know? And there was such chemistry between them. And I makes me wonder where poor Amanda Bynes is now, because she sort of famously flamed out not too long after that movie. But Ariana, go watch that performance. That is how you play that character, because she just had no sex appeal or punch to her at all.
It was weird to me, like, you know, she's allegedly like a big star, you know, and so why would she do this part and do it in such a wimpy kind of a way? you know?
I mean, it's like she did it only for being able to sing with Jennifer Hudson at the end, when the two of them were out there belting. Now, that's an Ariana Grande moment, and I can see that. They did terrific. But you had a character to play, and you're, other than, having big hair, you really weren't.
Yeah, I found that performance to be strange, and that casting to be strange. I mean, I get why they put her in, obviously, to bring in the people, her fans, but it didn't, because I think that's why my daughter wanted to watch it. But yeah, we were both like, well, that wasn't very exciting.
The guy who played Seaweed was from the Hamilton cast.
Oh.
And I was really, really rooting for him, but he just had nothing to play off. There was one point at which they're supposed to be, like, dancing together, and she's just off someplace else. And it's like, man, you just got a bad break there that you have her as your partner in this thing, because it ain't happening.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like they didn't do as much with the fact that it was live like Grease did.
I think they were trying to do it because it was like they were running around in, streets, and it was a little more fluid than like The Sound of Music, where they had 2 or 3 specific sets. So they were running around a soundstage, but it didn't seem to have the same pep that I seem to remember Grease having.
Right.
And I don't know how you get that and what the difference is. If it's the performers, if it's the physical venue that you're doing in it, or is it just that we got to stop expecting that and just admire the technical accomplishments without expecting it to be like a movie?
Right. Or was it the director,
Maybe.
Which was Tommy Kail when it was the Grease?
Well, we'll just assume that was it.
Must be. What else could it possibly be?
Yeah, but I remember when we watched She Loves Me, we watched the live version of that they had, and it was sort of the same thing. It's like you're watching a live production, but it doesn't feel like, it's never going to feel like being in the theater. And the camera is going to choose what you're looking at, whereas when you're watching something live in the theater, you get to make that decision. And you don't have a choice between whether you want a close-up or a long view. You always have the long view, and sometimes a very long view if you're up in the balcony. But it's just, my brain doesn't know what to make of these, I think, is what the problem is, because it looks like a TV show or a movie. It's slick looking, it's pretty, it has performers I recognize, so I want it to hold up to those standards, and yet it's not that, it's something else. But it's not quite that something else either. Right.
So they keep trying to do this thing that is such a weird animal that they may as well not do it.
I don't know. Well, people watch it. Did you hear anything about the ratings of it? Did it get a lot of people watching?
I don't know. That's a good question.
I watched the whole thing. I enjoyed it, but mostly it just made me want to go watch the movie. And I spent some time on YouTube finding clips and going, yeah, that's right.
That was better.
But it was, it was a movie, so it was produced and it was edited and it had an unfair advantage, I guess.
Right. And it didn't have her singing Good Morning Baltimore in the dark.
No. Oh yeah, that was unfortunate.
That was weird. Did you guys not know that it was going to be dark at this time? Or didn't have enough lights? Or what was the problem? I don't understand.
It's daylight savings time in Baltimore, so it's just you're going to school in the dark. It's verisimilitude. Yeah, so I'm glad I watched it. It's always fun to see these things come up. I didn't see quite as much tweeting on it as I had in the past for other things, but maybe I was looking in the wrong place.
Well, maybe that's because Lin-Manuel was unavailable.
Right. Yes, that's true.
Because last year he was totally hyping it up for
he was
for Tommy.
For one thing, he's in London, so they were showing it on Friday and not Wednesday.
Right.
And for another, he's sick. Apparently, has some terrible thing where he can't get out of bed without falling down. So get well, Lynn. Be ready to tweet the next thing.
How's he being a chimney sweep in Mary Poppins?
I don't know. I think he's going to have to rest up for a while.
Yeah.
It's not like he's been taking it easy for the past how many years?
Probably never.
He keeps limping back to Twitter and people keep yelling at him, go back to bed, get well, this is why you're sick.
Everyone just wants what's best for poor Lynn.
I'm like, you could sit up a couple of times a day and tweet something.
Yeah, you would think.
Just,
that wouldn't be too taxing.
Dictate it to your wife and have her type it in. That's okay.
Yeah, I'm sure she'd love that.
Yeah, I'm about to throw the phone out the window, I'm sure. He would be a difficult patient, I would bet. But we have gotten well off the track here. Because This particular live production has actually nothing to do with Lin-Manuel Miranda, except that there is a Hamilton cast member in it, so it does. Everything has to do with him.
Everything comes back to that.
Yes.
So. Well, maybe we should move on then to the baking, which again does not seem to have any sort of Lin-Manuel or Hamilton connection.
We'll find one somewhere.
You never know what the challenges will be in the future that may involve baking a facsimile of Aaron Burr.
Yes, it could be. It could be. I bet one of those bakers is a Hamilton fan. It gets something in there. One thing I noticed about this episode, now this was the first one we watched. It was 2 episodes back to back. And now we have a 3rd episode, just 1 hour. Thank you. Seemed to me that our palindromic hosts, Nia and Ian, not quite palindromes, but it's so close. It seems like they were funny this time.
They were a little funnier.
It seems like they were making a deliberate effort to be funnier. They heard you, Catherine.
They listened to what I said.
Even though they probably taped this quite a long time ago. They heard you through time. And they said, we got to step it up.
Right. We need to take advantage and be funnier. So, we had 1 episode, and we also had to skip ahead, we had where they didn't send anybody home because they had an empty spot from where the person who had to leave.
They used the bye week this time, which is fine, which is understandable, which there was nothing on the level of the Tiny Crumble Gingerbread Shack to send somebody home on this time. That was I was surprised they didn't mention why they could do that. I was waiting for them to say, since somebody went home unexpectedly, we have this option to do this. They just did it.
They just made it seem like, well, it was so hard to pick that we didn't pick.
Yes.
Which was a little bit of a stretch of the truth.
Yeah, but nobody really flamed out this time. There was nobody. I mean, their bread didn't bounce back when touched. Or their gigantic bread sculpture kind of leaned, but it wasn't, there were not that many real disasters. Their stollen was uneven and, their marzipan was crooked, but there wasn't anything terrible.
Right.
I'm interested to see how, and maybe it's just my perception, it seems to me we're getting a little bit more of an American edit now on this thing, because there were a lot of shots of Amanda giving people stink eye, and I'm thinking, now if this were an American show, like a competition show on the Food Network, they would be setting her up to either win or lose, and she didn't either.
Mm-hmm.
I thought they're giving her the bad sport gonna go home edit. She was crying, she was complaining, she was looking at other people with snotty looks, I thought.
Mm-hmm.
And then she did well in the last challenge, but wasn't the star baker, and nobody went home. So it's like somebody in the editing room was just thinking, you know what, this thing's really boring. I'm just gonna do the Food Network cut from here and there. They did that.
Yeah.
Somebody mentioned autopsy, and they cut to Michael, who's is he a coroner? Is that what his medical specialty is? They haven't really ever said, have they? But I thought it was somebody was having fun with that cut.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, I did at one point get the vibe of like, oh, she's going home.
Yeah, didn't it seem like it was the going home edit?
Mm-hmm. Yep, it did.
Which they didn't do last time, I don't think.
No, they really didn't in the first 2. Mm-mm. So
I am ready for her to go home. Anyway, she's not my favorite. And Ashlyn, who won the Star Baker, is also not one of my favorites. And I thought her tree looked kind of ridiculous. But I am not renowned baking expert of any sort.
No.
I am
but
just
you do bake.
I am just a bitchy home viewer trying to make this into something that it's not. They're all just baking, man.
Do you have any favorites? You have some not favorites, but do you have any favorites?
Yeah, well, I think it's more that I have not favorites. I have to keep laughing that Jeremiah keeps doing so well, and I'm thinking he's going to wind up with like a bread knife in the back or something, or somebody's going to like put salt in his dough when he's not looking. It's right. Let's step this up. There's no way anybody can sandbag him. It's just we're all just going to smile and nod in his direction every time the judges pat him on the head and say, "You are the best little baker." He didn't get it, get the Star Baker this time, and he smiled even though his eyes were saying, "Should have been 9," but he smiled.
Been me, come on. I made a sleigh out of bread.
Where there never was a sleigh. Yes, I want to know, they give backstories sometimes, and there weren't a lot of backstories this time. I want to know the
Mhm.
backstory between Michael's tribute to his mother being pretzel dough made with beer. There is a story there.
I know, it was like this lovely brooch. She said it was based on a brooch
Yeah.
that she would wear at Christmas time, and yet he went with the beer bread.
Pretzels
So,
and beer. So
pretzels and beer. Mom
had nice jewelry, but
good point.
we know where she was every Friday night. Interesting.
Yes, that was good thinking. I would like to find out more, but I don't think we're going to find out anymore because they're going to just move on to.
I feel like there's a whole other series
topic
for Michael. I want to see Michael. I want to know more about that dude. He's like so serious and morose looking, and yet there's a story there. There's some depth.
Yet he's into beer bread.
He's into beer bread, who knew? Or his mother was into beer bread. We're not sure. But,
right.
Anyway, so I'm still enjoying it very much. I think it's very good.
Good.
And I'm also along the lines of a more Food Network-y thing. The bit where Mary and Johnny go around from baker to baker to check out what they're doing.
And give them extreme side eye.
They're freaking them out. Johnny has this, I'm just going to call it the "you're tripping" look that he gives when people say, "Oh yes, I'm going to bake it this way and it's going to work." And he just kind of looks at them like,
"Yay, if you
that's
say
not going to
so."
happen." But okay, little baker. And I guess everything seemed to sort of turn out okay, but he's he can't say, "Well, you're wrong there." He just kind of gives them the look and they move on to the next. But the bakers get so freaked out when they come by. And understand, I mean, this is what I wonder about this on all these food competition shows. You have like 2 hours to make rolls that take all day. And here, talk to our judges for like 5 minutes. It's not like you're doing anything.
Right, you're not busy.
This is your chance to be on TV. Say something witty while you're sweating out your proofing.
Freaking out.
Exactly. It seems kind of unfair. I mean, at least when Nia and Ian stop by, they're helping. They're usually helping.
Yes.
So,
although I'm not sure if I were like a control freak enough to be good enough to be on the show, would I want them touching my stuff?
Probably not.
No, I wouldn't.
Everybody leave me alone is pretty much what I would be thinking.
Right. Back off.
Yes.
Don't even look in my proving drawer. You might mess it up.
Bread is something I enjoy eating so very much, and yet I have zero desire to make it.
Yeah, me either.
Looks like
thanks.
way too much trouble. I had a bread machine for a little while, and I made some bread in it that looked misshapen. But bread is kind of always delicious. It can be too soft, it can be too hard, it can be dry, it can be whatever. If it's dry, you slap butter all over it, and if it's kind of loose, then it's dough. Dough is fun, and I just kind of love bread. I mean, Ashland's not my favorite, but that big cast iron skillet full of hot bread, you can just bring that to me anytime, sweetie.
Anytime.
I'll get to know you.
A hot plate or a hot pad and maybe a fork, but probably not.
Yeah. I could go for that. That sounds good.
Mm-hmm. Well, so should we move from the bread to the pancakes with New Hampshire maple syrup?
Yes.
Which were served on the West Wing.
Yes. We watched the episode The Leadership Breakfast, and I did not want to watch it again because I remembered not liking it. And I kept stopping and saying, no, for the purpose of the podcast, be a good podcaster, watch the whole thing. And I did. But episode where Toby gets the bleep kicked out of him are never my favorite episodes, except for 17 People, which is coming up, and that is wonderful. But otherwise, you just know where it's going. It's just so, I mean, I did, because I've seen it before, I guess. Did you know that the end game of that was going to be a disaster? It was pretty clear, right?
You mean Felicity Huffman and how she...
Listen to CJ, dude. Listen to CJ.
Right.
What the heck are you doing?
Yeah. He had a blind spot there.
Yeah, she was, I mean, it seemed really obvious from the beginning that she was playing him. Mm-hmm. She was kind of Dana-y in a way, but with like steel behind it. It's like, I'm going to play this cute, flirty thing, but really I am trying to find
but
exactly where my knife can go into your back.
Right. There was a lot more of that.
Yeah.
Backstab portion.
she was stabby from the beginning, I think.
Yeah.
And I mean, maybe it's just because I had seen it before and I knew where it was going, but I did not like where it was going, and it was just painful. That press conference was just painful because you knew what was going to happen.
It was like the slow-mo, no, because you knew it was going to end badly.
Once you've seen CJ negotiate that, and then Toby gives it away, and you know, oh, don't, stop, danger.
Yep, unfortunate.
So even worse than dropping your underwear in front of people would be having made that happen and then get blasted in such a way. Yikes. Poor Toby.
And the whole underwear thing, which figured prominently in the episode and in the podcast, was just sort of silly and like, I don't know, just wouldn't happen or wouldn't happen in that way.
I mean, I guess it did happen to Emily Proctor, but
did happen in a way to Emily Proctor. But the way it happened with Donna, first of all, who writes their name in their underwear?
Over the age of like camp.
Yeah. So the reason why Donna got her underwear mailed back to her was because she had her name inside. Like, that's ridiculous.
And who picks up somebody's underwear and examines it to that degree? Because it sounds like it was used underwear, right? What they were saying was it was from the day before and she took it off with her pants, and then when she put the pants back on, it was stuck there in a leg someplace.
I guess.
So, who's going to like pick up the used underwear and examine the tag and then like put it in an envelope? I hope she was wearing gloves. But so the whole thing is just so unsavory.
So each part of it, like the fact that her name was in it, the fact that Karen, what's-her-face, picked it up and sent it back to her, and the fact that Josh, like, figured this all out, like, did you wear the same pair of pants twice? Was it a pant leg? Like, what? Where are you? How are you making...
And why couldn't it be like Emily Proctor's story of just a big bunch of stuff came back from the laundry and I didn't realize that something was stuck in the leg?
Right.
Rather than it being her used underwear, which is just disturbing.
Right.
But I thought it was interesting in the West Wing Weekly podcast that they mentioned that the bit about making a fool of yourself in front of somebody powerful was in a Sports Night episode where Dan misspoke in front of Hillary Clinton. But they didn't mention that there was a person underwear thing in Sports Night. In that case, Dana, I guess, deliberately took her underwear off to see if she could, which no, does not happen.
No,
bras
would never
maybe,
happen, right?
Underwear no. But to do it once is bad enough. To do it again, Erin's just tickled by this idea, clearly, of women leaving their underwear behind, and it's unseemly. Stop it.
Although the whole thing of each person in turn making a fool of themselves in front of that columnist, and then to the point where it gets to the president and like, you have to do this because the whole like chain of
I kind of liked though the matter-of-fact way that Leo described all that stuff to the president.
Right, yes. And then the president just takes it in stride as well and is like, okay, well, sure, I see why I would need to do that.
I'm not sure why Donna thought the president was the person to ask. Let me see, this has been passed down from the chief of staff to the deputy communications director to the assistant to the assistant. The president should be the next person in that chain. That's working, you know.
Well, you have to when you've exhausted all of your regulars, then you have to move on to the big guns because
I think it sounds like a job for Ed or Larry.
Yes.
They need more to do. Or CJ's deputy press secretary, who we have never seen or heard of before. Send him. That was a very good point that they made in the West Wing Weekly podcast. Like all of a sudden you find out there's a guy
that works for CJ that we've never ever seen, but who's senior enough to take over a press conference.
I was glad to hear that though, because I had forgotten exactly how it played out, and I was thinking, I don't want to have to see CJ there getting humiliated and ambushed over something that Toby did against her direct advice. So at least she could be behind the scenes figuring out what to do about the mess. And very, very adult of her not to say I told you so to pretty much everybody in the building.
Right. She had every right.
She should put that in her pocket. The next time Toby asks her something, she should pull it out. And maybe she does.
Remember
I can't remember specifically.
The leadership breakfast.
Yes, the leadership breakfast. So
that was that.
That was that. I'm glad I made it through. I think what is the next one?
The drop-in. So next week on the podcast, we will cover The Baking Show again.
Yes.
And The West Wing again with the drop-in. And, maybe we'll surprise you with something else.
Drop in some other bit of popular culture that we come upon during the week.
Absolutely.
As we certainly shall.
So that's going to be it for our round 2 today. Please subscribe to our Parenting Roundabout podcast so you won't miss any of our episodes, including our daily speed rounds and our weekly group chats. As always, you can find recaps, links, and an opportunity to comment on our website at parentingroundabout.com. Bye, Terri.
Bye, Catherine.
Bye, everyone.